So let's find the curl of f of xyz equals the vector e to the x, e to the xy, e to the xyz. Actually, this is a vector field. I know that I'm going to end up needing a bunch of partial derivatives, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and find some partials right now. I'm thinking of this as being obviously p, q, and r. So p equals e to the x. That means the partial of p, I know I'm going to need it with respect to z and y. So with respect to z is actually going to be the same as the partial of p with respect to y, which they're both 0. I also know that q equals e to the xy, so the partial of q with respect to z is also going to be 0. And the partial of q with respect to x is going to be y e to the xy. And then r is e to the xyz. So the partial of r with, see what I'm going to need. I'm going to need it with respect to y. And that's going to be xz e to the xyz. And I'm also going to need the partial of r with respect to x. And that's going to be yz times e to the xyz. Now let's go ahead and work out the curl for this. And I'm going to need these partials as part of that. The curl, I'm going to say, is the del operator cross f. So I need the determinant here. So that's going to be, see, I, j, k, the partial with respect to x, partial with respect to y, partial with respect to z, and then simply p, q, and r. Now, obviously, if you remember the pattern for the curl, you don't have to go through this, but I'll go through this just to make sure that we have it all worked out here. And when I do this, I'm going to have the partial of r with respect to y minus the partial of q with respect to z. And I know this is actually going to be a plus because remember they get turned around, which is going to actually end up giving me the partial of p partial with respect to z minus the partial of r with respect to x. And by turned around, whoops, I forgot my I. By turned around, what I mean is, remember earlier that negative was factored out to give me a positive here. And then this could be a j. And this last component is going to be the partial of q with respect to x minus the partial of p with respect to y, k. So that's my curl. So now I need to put it all together. So this is going to be equal to, let's see, the partial of r with respect to y is right there. So this would be x, z, e raised to the x, y, z minus the partial of q with respect to z. Well, q with respect to z is 0, so I'm not even going to bother writing that in there. And then I'm going to have plus the partial of p with respect to z, but that was also 0, if I recall correctly. Yep, there it is. P with respect to z is a 0. So that gives me a minus r with respect to x. And the partial of r with respect to x is right here. That's yz e to the x, y, z, j. Plus, I need the partial of q with respect to x. Q with respect to x was y e to the xy. And then partial of p with respect to y was 0. So this is just going to be k. So this is the curl of this vector field f.